Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to go over some review material on some of the elements that we've gone over before. We're also going to go over the width tool, which can be found over here, and we're also going to learn how to import pictures for the purposes of tracing over. And I think this is going to be a good opportunity for us to learn how we could take the tools we've already learned and use them in practical purposes. So to get started with this, we're just going to create ourselves a new little stroke using the Curvature Tool. And we're going to just keep this very simple. Now, just a heads up on what I've done already. I've already turned off the fill for this. You're going to find that this is going to help you greatly for the next thing that we're going to be working with. But if you need to see how to do that again, you click the fill, you go to where it says none, and it basically makes sure that there's nothing filled in over here. We also have the stroke still on black. That's going to be helpful for us. And now we have a line that pretty much has the same shape all the way through. Now this can be changed in one of two ways. You can either go to the stroke itself, and there's an option here called Profile. And what the profile has is basically how the actual stroke is going to be shaped. Now if you wanted it to be a different shape, there's some preset ones here already. Like, for example, we can choose this with profile 1, and I'm going to actually make this stroke a little bit thicker so you can see the difference. But it basically makes it so that the ends kind of get a little bit sharper near the ends. Could be useful if you want to make anything like an eyelash or something like. And it also has some other types, there we go, of profiles as well. And take a look at that. We can actually just go over here, and you'll see that there's some width profiles in these areas, and each of them has a different look depending on what you're trying to get. Of course, if you ever need to go back to default, you can either again hit the stroke or the width profile over here and just choose the very first uniform one. And that's basically how you do it in this case. Now, if you're in a situation where you need to basically make the changes in very specific spots, there's a little option, again called the width tool, that allows you to take existing points and make these areas thicker or thinner, depending on what you need. Or if you need to make your own points, that's possible too. You can make some very unique designs with this. So I usually find this actually pretty useful for us. But it's not going to be useful for the assignment we're going to be doing, so I'm going to lose this. So I'm just selecting this, deleting, all done. So that's basically what the width tool could do and the width profile. Now let's actually try and do something a little bit more, well, something that you might be able to use in more practical purposes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to import a royalty-free picture. Let's see. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to use the place option. And I'm going to go to, let's see, my documents over here, and here we go. And basically what's happening here, once I use the place option, is I can either just click this very quickly, or I can click and drag this to be the size I need this to be. So I've chosen the later option for myself. And well, we have this one guy looking very confused on, well, why he's there. Well, in this case, he's here because, well, we want to basically trace over him. Now, the reason why a person might want to trace over an existing character that already is here is it could be that someone made a really good-looking raster image, and they might want to actually make this something that could be enhanced or it could be a little bit bigger. Now, this particular picture, again, because it's raster, basically means that the bigger you make it, the more potentially pixelated it's going to be. But if we make this vector, or with Illustrator, we can in theory scale this as big as we want, and we're not going to need to worry about that ever. So yeah, so in other words, it definitely has an advantage to it. Now, once you've imported this in, it's your choice if you want to continue making this bigger. By the way, hold Shift if you're doing this. And we're only going to get the head because I don't want to take too much time with this, as it is going to take quite a bit of time just to get the head by itself. If any of you feel that you want to continue with this, you're more than welcome to do so. But again, I just did a search for royalty-free pictures, and I was able to find this gentleman over here. If you want to try with another cartoon character, something that might be more copyrighted, that's completely free for you to try to do yourself. But now that I have this guy, and I have them in the proper position, there's two strong recommendations that I would say that a person should do before they get started. First things first, I would strongly recommend you embed the actual picture itself. And this is what embed does. It basically makes this raster image as part of the Illustrator file. So in other words, we basically make sure that this picture is going to stay with the Illustrator file at all times. Without this done, it basically means that if you just take the file by itself in terms of your Illustrator file, it's not going to potentially follow along with it, and thus you might lose your picture. But if you embed it, like I'm doing right now, it'll basically make it part of the actual Illustrator file, making a couple elements a little bit easier in the future. Now that I have that, so that's step one. Step two, and this one I cannot strongly recommend enough, is I would make this its own layer and lock this up. Well, that's relatively simple to do. I'm just going to go to my layer section over here. And again, I got this from Essentials, just hitting the click and drag to Essentials over here. And then I just clicked and dragged the layer over here so I'm able to play around with it a little bit easier. But now that I have that, I'm going to double click this layer. This will allow you to rename it, so that's very helpful for you too. We could call this Ref. And there's an option over here in the layer section. There's actually two of them. One is toggles the visibility, basically making your picture invisible, or just turns off the visibility entirely. And the other one, which is not really an option you'll see, but this is what's called the toggle lock. Now what this will do is if you turn this on, it'll basically make sure that you can't do anything with this. If you're ever going to do any kind of tracing, this is one of the most essential things to help keep your consistency and avoid any kind of issues that might come along the way when tracing. Now that I have that though, I'm going to create myself a new layer. And this is going to be for the purposes of tracing. So I'm just going to call this tracing for now, although I am free to rename this whatever I wish. So, all right, I think we're ready to actually get started with this. So, first things first, how do you get started? Well, the way that I usually recommend people get started, at least for something like a toon, is make whatever's further back first, and then kind of keep going forward the best that you can. And also, I'm going to be using the pen tool for this. I would strongly recommend that the fill continue to be turned on, off, and the stroke be turned on to black. So this will make things a lot easier as we progress. So I guess it's the issue on how we begin with this. I got to be honest, if I was going to choose how to approach this, I usually go with the actual skin first, and then I would go with the hair, and then I would go with the eyes, and then any other miscellaneous details, at least for the head, I would do after that, and then I would do the little collar last. Now again, we're not going to do the whole thing, we're just going to go down to the collar. We might do a little bit, and I do mean little, of the tie, but we're not going to go too crazy with this. I think that this should be far enough for today's lesson. Okay, so let's get started. So the pen tool is currently selected. Very good. And what I'd recommend a person do whenever you're going to start anything, I usually find it's helpful to start with a corner if you can. Or you could start by in an area that is going to be covered up. But in this case, I don't want to have too much clutter, so I'm going to actually choose this corner over here. And I'm just going to click and drag where I can. And second thought, that's Curvature Tool. I think a pen tool would be better. There we are. Then I'm going to click and drag a little bit. And click and drag a little bit. Then one quick click over here, because that is a corner. And I'm just going to click and drag a little bit. Now the purpose of this is I'm trying to get a curve in certain areas, depending on how much of a curve there is. And if there is no curve, I just get a quick little click over here. Quick click. And again, if it's rounder, I click and drag to basically make that shape. Click and drag. Click and drag. Quick click. Again, if it's not perfect the first time out, that's not a problem, because we can always change these elements later. So this one's very easy because, again, it goes straight down, making this way easier for me. And just going to click over here, click and drag slightly, click and drag slightly. Now, the mouth is going to be a little bit of tricky business, I have to admit, but it's not going to be that bad. So I'm just going to get the inner part of the mouth for now. Don't worry about coloring this yet. If you do this right, you can use the fill to get most of your needs. Oop. There we go. So just try and follow this the best you can. And again, when you go to an area like with these eyes, don't worry about this area too much, because the nice thing about this is this area is going to be covered with these eyes. So don't sweat too much on the perfection of this. Just get to where the next point's going to be. And this is one of the reasons why I recommend doing corners first, is all you need to do to get the last part is just give it a quick little tap and you're done. So again, this is the other reason why I have the ref here, so I could basically turn this off and turn this on, and you can see that overall this is actually looking pretty nice. Very cool. Now this part over here is going to be a little bit tricky, and it's just double checking a couple other areas. Looks like overall the main shape that I'm looking for is there. So I'm going to turn down the tracing layer that we have over here. This is looking good. Awesome. Now I'm going to temporarily turn on the lock for the path so that the next point that I make can be specifically for the hair. Now certain areas I am going to kind of trace over-ish a little bit. And again, if you need to, use the Z for the zoom tool to zoom in. Again, the closer you get, the potentially more detail you can get a little easier. So let's see. Again, P for pen. And again, this is where you have to decide where you want this to begin. Again, I strongly recommend getting corner, and you don't get much cornery than this, so I can just click over here, and I'm tracing over where the hair would be. And just getting this area over here, getting this area over here. This area is a corner. This area is definitely a curve. And this area is definitely a curve. Now, if you get into an area like this, what we see over here, don't worry about getting this thing going back, at least in this case. I can always go back later, should I need to, and just make a line specifically for that. A lot of this is a bit of a case-by-case basis, but the more you practice with this, the easier this is going to get. I definitely see that, at least with the hair, I am going to need to make some changes. Yeah, so I definitely could see that there's going to need some changes here, but that's okay. Now, for example, over here, I'm using the curvature tool to bring this up a little bit. I'm going to use the curvature tool to bring this down a little bit. Yeah. By the way, something I should probably mention, you can use the curvature tool to help you with certain parts. Now, there we are. Nice. There we are. So definitely don't get the corners if you can help it, because that's going to cause problems. But everything else looks pretty good. And again, worst case scenario, you know what? Undo's your best friend. Yeah, there we go. If we need to add some more, we can. So let's take a look at how this looks. I'm going to use the zoom key to get out a little bit. The good news is we got a good chunk of the more difficult parts, at least for the bigger picture. Yeah, that's looking nice. Okay, so the only couple areas in terms of shapes that we need is going to be the eyes. It's going to be the collar. It's probably going to be this part of the mouth over here, and this part of the collar, and possibly the tie. Let's do the easier parts first, and we'll worry about the other stuff later. So in this case, you could either choose to start off with a circle, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that, or ellipse, or you could basically just make your own curve yourself. In my case, and again, I'm going to start with the furthest away. Actually, I'm going to start off with this one. No, furthest away, as I said before. And I'm using the Curvature Tool for this. Okay, and I'm going to lock these up so I don't accidentally click something I'm not supposed to. Again, locking these up when possible is a huge help. And do the same thing over here. Just since this has no rounder area, this is okay to do somewhat. Cool. And if I turn off the reference, yep, there's my eyes. You can see that I'm definitely going to need to make an adjustment over here. And an adjustment over here. Again, I'm trying to keep these lines in the middle the best I can. I'm looking pretty good so far. Okay, so yeah, in terms of the other shapes, I'm definitely going to need to use the pen tool. Oops, looks like this area is getting a little bit away from itself, so I'm going to bring this back, and get rid of what's unnecessary. Okay, so let's see. I'm definitely going to need the pen tool over here, and I'm basically going to make this general collar itself. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about some of the crazier details. That can come maybe a little bit later, should time permit. But for now, again, I'm going to lock up all my details. Looks like there's an extra detail over here. I can always fix that later. There we are. And again, I'm just fixing some of the curves because they just weren't looking right. Excellent. Well, that's looking good. And I'm going to get this curve, this part of the collar over here. There we are. Well, looks like I got all that. If I need to add some more parts when I get to the inking stage, that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Okay, just the last thing I want to add is the tie. And again, I'm not going to get too crazy with this. Just basically making a quick little round area. And yeah, I'll just basically just make this. And again, this is why I put this kind of around this part of the canvas. So I can just make this a little outside. And there we go. All right, well, I think I have all the bigger details now. Let's double check. Ah, there we are. So some parts are going to intersect. Some areas might not look as good as they can, at least at first. But as we progress, that will change. And of course, when we put in the color, that's going to change a lot. So let's actually get some of those last details. So I'm not going to go too crazy with all the details today, but I am going to make sure I get some of the bigger details. So of course that's going to be the eyeballs, that's going to be the eyelashes, that's going to be like the hair back here, maybe some of these other hair elements over here, definitely the detail for the ear, and just some of the dots over here. But again, I want to make sure we have plenty of time for some other stuff, so we won't go too crazy with this. Now, as I said before, at least with the pupils, we could actually just use a very simple shape for this. So I'm just going to go to the ellipse, and I'm just going to use the Option key to move this right in the middle over here, and do the same thing over here. Just Option key so I can make this exactly where I need this to be. There we are. Excellent. Okay. And let's see. I'm going to make an ellipse for this area over here as well. And I'm using the Curvature Tool to get the basic shape. Again, I'm trying to get the line, if possible, in these middle areas. Now that should be fine for now. Again, we can add some more later. Okay, so we got the rounder areas. Let's actually get the eyelashes. So in this case, you can use the curvature or a pen tool. I'll leave that up to you. I'm going to use the curvature tool for now. I'm only going to really need 2 points, to be honest. But this is where the width tool comes into play. And maybe just yeah, there we go. So what I could do now is I could use the width tool to make this bottom part bigger, make this area smaller, and it would be a bad idea for me to maybe curve this a bit. There we are. And V to end that thing. And the same thing's going to happen over here. Just going to use the curvature tool to round this area out. And then use the width tool to make the end a little bit bigger. And this area maybe just a smidge big too. Not too big though. Perfect. Of course, always double check just to make sure. Okay, I think for the purposes of what we're doing, we should be fine. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. Again, you could use the, I'm going to use the pen tool because I haven't used this in a while. Click here, click and drag, and click and drag. Oop. And V to end it. Once again, I'm going to use the width tool. And I'm going to shrink that down over here. Okay, and that probably could be a little bit rounder, so I'm just going to, yeah, there we are. This probably could go a little higher up, and there we are. Cool. Of course, if we need to change a couple of the orientations of certain parts in here, that's not going to be that difficult. And but yeah, that should be good over here. So let's take a look at our reference again. I'm going to add one more line, and again, I'm just going to do that with the, there we are. Just going to use that with the simple curvature tool. 1, 2, 3. Hit V, and again with the width tool. There we are. Of course, we're just going to switch this around a little bit. And I'm going to move this a little further. There we are. Okay. And one thing I'm going to do before I go any further, because we can see that some of the lines are a little bit off compared to their reference, let's actually see if we can get the stroke a little bit thicker so it's a little bit closer to what we have here. So I'm going to select all these strokes that I have minus the ones that I changed manually. And it would be a good idea to make sure I unlock all these. No problem with that. Since they're all made, this should be fine to do. Okay, let's see how thick this should be. Now I'm going to use this as a reference. Let's see here, maybe one more. There we go. That's a little closer. So let's take a look at our reference again, and oh yeah, there we go. This is definitely happening. So let's see how thick this is. This is a 0.5, as you can see over here. Just going to make sure the eyes are the same. 1, 2, 3, 4, yep, 5. So we have a nice looking outline right here, and that's going to help us quite a bit. Now there's still some details we still need to add in. Oh, almost forgot this one over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ah, very cool. This is kind of what I'm talking about in terms of what you could do with this. Now again, just for the sake of time, I won't worry about every detail right now. This is stuff that you guys can do on your own. But there's still at least 1 or 2 more parts I just want to finish before we move on to the next step, which is actually put in the color. So let's actually just put in the hair elements over here. Just put like a couple dots in the collar, and I think that's where we'll kind of stop it for now, at least in terms of the details. And we can always add more later on anytime we want to. So let's get these 2 details in here now. So once again, I'm just basically just clicking over here. 1, 2, 3. And just going to zoom in a little bit so we can see this a little easier. And just going to shrink this area up. That actually should do it. So that's actually kind of nice. Make sure that I deselect that. 1, 2, 3. Hit V. And once again, use the width tool to shrink that area down. And just turn up the width over here. Okay, and this is why we always double check, because it looks like this needs to go a little bit further back. This needs to go a little further back too. Oh yes, I almost forgot. This area we're going to need to do too. But before that, let's actually get the little points on the shirt. So I'm just going to get those. Once again, I'm using the Alt to make sure I get it perfectly circled where they need to be. And that should be it. Just double checking. Again, we'll have to fill this in with color, but that's not going to be a problem. And yeah, at least over here, just going to add a quick little point here to here. And I'm just going to turn this off for now. I'm going to make this area very thick. Again, I could do that just by clicking. Make sure you only have what you need changed, selected. And if you're having difficulty finding it, yeah, there we go. That's the way. There we are. And of course I could add a little bit of a shape over here a little bit later. But yeah, that's as far as I think I want to take it for now. I'm just going to add the color in. And again, if I need to add in those extra details, I can. You know what? There is one area I need to fix. This one's kind of bugging me a little bit. So I'm just going to select this and I'm going to match this with the ear a little bit better. There we are. I'm liking that better. Okay. So let's add in those colors for this, because that's going to be kind of important. All right, so the simplest way, not so much the easiest way, but the simplest way would be using the little color picker that I have here, since we do have the exact colors we need. So just going to select the actual stroke. Now keep in mind how big the actual stroke is over here. There are a couple situations where you will lose the stroke temporarily, but it's easy to get back. So I'll do the hair first because that's already ready to go. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, select the actual color, and that'll fill in immediately. But as I said before, the stroke kind of goes bye-bye, but that's easy enough to bring back. You go to the actual color, put that on over here, and while this is still selected, I'm putting this back to 5. That's looking nice. Now, any other area that needs color, try to get these elements that are further away from the back as best you can. In other words, closer to us or higher in the hierarchy. It tends to be a little tricky to select those elements later. So again, smaller details first. Okay, so these ones over here, since they're both the same color, I'll just fill these with black because that's basically what we have here anyway. And I'm doing the same things with the pupils, although I don't think we need to worry about that one as much, but nevertheless. Okay, those are pretty much full anyway, so I'm not going to worry about those. But I do need to worry about the white. So I'm going to select both of these, and they both have a stroke of 5. And it looks like it's pure white, but nevertheless, I'm just going to double check once again by selecting the eyedropper tool. You can also get there by hitting I. Yep, but I'm definitely going to need to turn on that stroke again. But this is why we have those numbers. They're easy enough to replace should we need to. So those eyes are looking good. Now I'm going to select the skin itself. Once again, use the eyedropper tool. And turn the stroke back on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is why one of the reasons why I recommend making this stuff the way that we did. It just makes that part so much easier. And even though this does have a white-ish color to it, I'm still going to try to get the exact color by using the eyedropper tool for the shirt and for this shirt over here, because there might be some variations in this. Plus, you don't want to get reliant on the background. If you ever have to go to another software, you're not going to see the white in here, it's just going to be transparent, and that'll cause all kinds of trouble later. Yeah, there we go. There we go. And again, I'm selecting this stroke. And again, I know this one's black, so I'm good there. There we are. And I'm just going to add a little time. So once again, selecting that. And I'm just going to keep it one color for now. But I do need to turn on the stroke again. 1, 2, 3, 5. And I'm going to just make a quick little line over here. Again, not taking too much time. There we are. So now, even though I'm not quite 100% done, it still actually looks pretty good. Wow, that actually came out better than I was expecting, so that's always a nice feature for this. So I'm just going to leave it as is, because I'm pretty happy with this. But once again, the nice thing about this, before anything else, I am going to save this. I'm just going to name this demo, because it's right over here anyways. And yeah, it's going to save this as what's called an Adobe Illustrator.ai file. So, and of course the abbreviation's obvious. You can name this pretty much whatever you want. I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it Sam, because he looks like a Sam. But besides that, you can also hit the drop down over here. It's going to ask whatever kind of other files you want to save it as. And these are the ones that you can do. I'm going to be honest, the AI and the .pdf are going to be your best bets for most of your purposes. Or should I say general purposes. But I'm going to keep it as AI for now. I'm going to hit save. I would just keep this at the default at this time. You can always change this later if necessary. But once you hit OK, you should be pretty safe. Now, again, one of the reasons why working in vector is so helpful, you, in theory, could make this picture as big as you want it, and it shouldn't be a problem. So even though, let's say, this is basically, right now, the size of a piece of paper, a regular 8 by 10, give or take. Now, if I want to, I can actually select the entire picture over here, just making sure nothing's locked. Nothing is. Very cool. Click and drag all the details simultaneously, and I can just make this way bigger. So right now, this is roughly the size of a poster, and it'll still look pretty good. You might have to adjust the strokes a little bit, but there'll be ways that you can work around this should you need to. But for now, I'm pretty happy with where it is. That's one of the big things too. You don't necessarily need to get every single detail you have from a raster image into something that's vector, which is also kind of nice as well. As long as the general idea is there, you should be in great shape. So, all right, well, we went over a lot of stuff, and this went on for a little bit. So we'll wrap things up right now. Again, hopefully you found this video to be useful, and I hope that you found this at least somewhat entertaining. Next time, we're going to start getting into some more precision and some other ways that you can basically make more exact elements for the future. All right, well, everyone take care, and I'll see you the next time.